Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wrong to Strong Chicago. My name is Omar Calvillo, and tonight I have my guest here. His name's Damien Cash. I met this brother, I think had to be maybe like 2 years ago. It was, I think the first time I talked to you was through a Bible study that JC was leading.
Yeah, we were on like a big Zoom.
Yeah, it was like a few guys out there, and I think that was the first time. And then I think the time I met you in person was when JC was out here. That was like a year ago.
Took him around to all the
places
he was trying to minister to or create some.
So thanks for being out here, brother.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Hey, brother, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
A lot of people know me as Damien Cash. My close circle just calls me Cash, or if you're really like personal to me, it's Ryan. But I started off in music. I've had turntables in my room since 1987. So my story has been a musical one. It's always been connected to music. And it's kind of always been that way. Right now, I'm actually doing a lot of things in the musical landscape of my life. It started off, my uncle was a party promoter back in the late 80s, and he did all the Holiday Inn parties, the Highlanders, the Wozniaks. So my life was about dancing at first, and I started a dance group in grammar school called House Patrol, and I had friends in that dance group from all different neighborhoods, all different boundaries. We were crossing gang turf every day for practice. So, it was challenging when you have, the Gage Park community, first of all, which was where I was raised on 56 in Troy. Gage Park is 49th to 59th, and then like Levitt to like Central Park. So within that, you're talking about dozens of gangs. So they're like landmines, right? You go, you cruise the neighborhood, you're passing one gang, passing another. So like gang life was prominent in the late 80s, and it was on the rise in the Gage Park neighborhood. And, big gangs took little gangs. Party crews folded into gangs as well, and party crews were like dance groups back in the day. So unbeknownst to me, when I started my dance group, we were up against people who would then end up in turn being folded into gangs, from devious ones to guest boys to majestic party crews to, you name it. The gangs kind of had an overpowering hold on the neighborhood. Yeah. So I knew what it was. I knew what time it was. I knew what kind of surroundings I was in. So I kind of learned to navigate that on a day-to-day basis. Although I wasn't in a gang and really wasn't about the street life, it really wasn't until like the neighborhood started to change. When we first moved into the neighborhood, it was more of a racist thing. We were like the first Mexicans, or a handful of Mexicans that were in the neighborhood. So
what year was this when you guys moved?
This was 85.
Okay.
So, we tried to get into St. Gall, which was a Catholic school. They said there's a long list, and unless you know somebody, you're not getting in this school. So our parents put us into Tonti, and then Tonti.
Oh, is that a Chicago public school?
Yeah, that's a CPS, a public school. Yeah. And we went into Tonti, and we did CCD, which was like catechism school on Wednesdays at St. Gall. And then after grammar school, we went to high school.
Gotcha.
So high school, I went to Gage Park, which was another, learning lesson for me, because then we had a high school that was, catering to a Black demographic and a whole nother race of like gangs. And so it was a melting pot of like east of the high school was all Hispanics going to that high school. And then west of that high school was all like African Americans.
Right.
So learning how to navigate the world of gangs and politics kind of became like a specialty for me because I didn't want to join a gang. It
Right.
wasn't like my thing, but being able to be around different neighborhoods and be cool with everybody
Yeah.
is kind of time consuming.
No, yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I'm sure that you had to develop some skills. I had to.
Yes.
I'm thinking maybe some communication or just relational skills there, right?
So, having that gift of gab and being able to
Okay.
get along with everybody and talk with everybody, that I think that sprung from the like wide range of cultures and gangs and politics in my neighborhood. I mean, I went to school with a lot of like vice lords and kings, and there were some folks there, but most of my friends and affiliates were like vice lords and kings, which
Yeah.
kind of got along. And then that became a race thing in high school at one point or another. But
So
party scene.
So even though they got along, let's say like the kings
Yeah.
and vice lords, they could go against each other just because of race.
Because of race, But we're talking about more simpler times, like late '80s, early '90s. So all of this is kind of like in the DNA of who I am and how I was able to kind of navigate the streets the way that I did.
Right.
Because I've been around a lot of different big drug guys, street guys, leaders of gangs, and I've been able to be okay on both sides of the spectrum.
Okay.
Having turntables in my room all my life, that kind of led me to like my first job, which was like working at a music store in the discount mall. So then I was over in Little Village, and then that's when the love of like coming out with mixtapes came about.
But what age was this when you were at the discount mall?
So during high school, I was in like a work program. So I worked at a bank all through high school and like my late teens.
Okay.
So I want to say around 19 to 20, I decided that I wasn't going to work for corporate America and I wanted to go do what I love to do, which was music. So I just opted for a job in music. And that came in the form of working at the discount mall, manning a stand. And then I saw all the DJs at the time, making mixtapes. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to do that.
Gotcha.
And then I created a formula,
Could I ask you something? Like going back to when you were young, like did your parents bought you those turntables? Like did they, or how did that come about?
My uncle was more of the financier because he was doing parties and in the atmosphere. First, he bought me some cheap turntables and he was like, all right, well, let me see what you do with those.
Okay.
And I had like some direct drive turntables hooked up to like a speaker box, like radio. And when that all, he saw that I took it serious and I was like taking care of it and really pursuing it and begging him to, and then came the 1200s. So he was kind of like the driving force behind like my music passion and career because he understood it. He threw parties and all his friends were creatives and DJs and he himself was an artist and drew and did graffiti and all of that. So you're talking like all the elements, hip hop.
So you're watching and absorbing all this.
I'm like a sponge. I'm in the coat rooms. I'm a little squirt, in parties that I shouldn't even be in. Just like, wow, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is what I love. So that's like my first true love. My first passion was music. To the point that, I was infatuated with it and I had to find a way to make money within it.
Right.
That's where mixtapes came. Yeah. When I did mixtapes, the stakes were high. I started with like a freestyle tape, which wasn't even my genre. And I had to learn where all the stores were. So I built it like Lego blocks, right? One store at a time. And then before I knew it, I would run from one side of the city to the other and bump into stores and more stores and more stores and more stores. And then music started to change and then CDs came and went. So I had like a 2-3 year run of like just figuring music out as it changed and as it went along.
How long did it take you to make one? Let's say I know you DJ, you created, like to make the copies and to finally get it like to the stores, like just for one.
Well, it was a learning curve, right? I tried to make my first mixes and then I was like, man, by the time I made it, it was like, took me forever to put the mix together. Then I had to have somebody make the covers, and then I had to go get it duplicated, and then I had to go out there with the box and go sell it, right?
Right.
So I said, yeah, no, this ain't gonna work. I'm gonna hire people, and I'm gonna basically pay for masters, like, you know. So I started paying DJs to make the mixes. And
okay.
Yeah, so my first DJ that I actually hired was Mario Smoking Diaz from the WBMX.
Okay, no way.
Like smoking, hot, what do they call it? The Hot Mix 5.
Okay, yeah, right. That's in the 80s, right?
Yeah, so he did my first freestyle mix, and I put a different DJ name, alias name, and from there, I just was like, okay, this is the formula. There was no Damien Cash. It was just like, I went under the name DJ Angel. So it was like Broken Dreams, Amor Eterno, and just like hard house mixes, freestyle mixes. And then from there, I transitioned over to like ghetto house, which was booming, and I could sell that in both ethnic backgrounds.
Okay,
yeah. Go to the black neighborhoods and sell it, and I could go to the Hispanic neighborhoods and sell it. But I built up steam quickly, and then I started to get into the rap mixes, and rap came in, and then CDs came. And from there, I caught a really big name for myself, putting everything under the Damien Cash thing. And I just started flooding it with mixtapes and hitting the scene hard. And I started to make really good money, started to ship to like 13, 14 different states. And that's when things got serious with like copyright infringement and racketeering charges, and and
when you mentioned copyright, that's just from using people's music and putting it together
without the license.
Okay,
so that's illegal, and then that became an illegal product. And then when you take that product and you cross state lines with it, then you're committing a whole nother thing, and they just roll it all into like They like to build a case out of things. So I was like, wow, and then it got me in the crowds. I was selling CDs to like all the big time guys with the nice cars. I would be up and down 26th Street, walking through 26th Street and Sawyer, like posting up with mixtapes and selling mixtapes to people in nice
directly
cars.
you out there,
just straight up like $10 a whop for the CD. And and then I started to get a name for myself, and that's literally how I met like some of like the biggest drug dealers of our time. Like I met the twins like that at the Shell gas station, like
just by giving them a CD,
passing them my CDs, and like, selling them my CDs. I met Cato like that. I sold him my CDs, and he knew of me, of my CDs. And then we met later on other terms,
Gotcha.
So, I've kind of been in the backdrop of like the streets and the music.
Could I ask you a question? Like when you were doing that hand to hand, like basically selling directly, like how much would you make on one night? Like you were out there.
I mean, I could pull in anywhere from $500 to $1,000 just because my stuff was packaged right. I had the right stuff. I had the right music. So, at $10 a whop, I go through, 25, 50 CDs really quick, and you know how 26th Street used to be back in the day. It was a non-cruising zone, but we cruised. That's all people did was cruise. Right. Whether you were on the K-Town side or the other side, people just back to back cars cruising,
Right.
So with that said, I just learned to like turn my strength, of like music and hustling, and turning that into like a really big thing. And then that got me into rubbing shoulders with like all the people that ended up taking me into like the drug side of the world, which then ended up, costing me some time in prison. So, with that said, I've had a pretty interesting life, from being on the laps of like every major freestyle artist to like knowing every major like DJ, that's ever kind of DJ'd on a big scale in Chicago, to, picking these people up from the airports and, being in the party scene. So like music was kind of like, I want to say embedded in me and ingrained in me through my uncle and his partners, that, you know, threw parties back then.
Yeah.
So I want to like, you know, like dial in on how easy it is, right, to make the wrong choices, and not even just like selling drugs, but like just back up to like being in the neighborhood and being able to, the choice of joining up to like 12 different gangs. Every block you go to, there's somebody there that can be like, hey, you're our brother. We can, you know, come band with us, you know? So any kid that's, you know, like a broken home or a situation where the father's not there, or he's working 80 hours like most of our fathers were at around those times.
Could I ask you about your parents? Was it like that? How was your upbringing as far as like your home?
I grew up in in turmoil. You know, my parents were off and on. Although they loved us very much, and, you know, my father was a great provider, you know, he really wasn't there. You know, he worked hard to maintain the household. And then my mom was pulling her hair out with 3 boys that were, you know, we weren't bad in the sense of like doing bad things, but 3 boys wreak havoc on any situation, whether it's breaking furniture, breaking electronics, or just, you know, getting into mischief. And you got a team like that. You and your brothers.
That's how it was. It was well, back then it was 3 brothers, and then later on I got another brother and a sister. But trust me, I know
for sure. So, you know, I've made my peace with it. You know, my parents fought a lot. My dad drunk a lot. You know, and you see things, you hear things, and I've made my peace with it. I don't really blame them for anything. They did the best that they could with the resources that they had and the know-how that they had of like teaching us what they could, the best to their abilities, right? So I've made my peace with that, and just realized, like, you know, a lot of children have effed up, you know, upbringings, and very, very traumatic ones at that, you know. I lived in another country for whatever reason. My parents split up, and I went to another country.
Oh yeah, for how long?
I lived in Ecuador for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
So that was like culture shock for me, right?
Now, are both your parents from over there? Or?
No, my father was from Cuernavaca, Mexico.
Okay.
He's a war veteran and everything, so he's more of an American than like true like blue Mexican. You know, he was like an Americanized version of a Mexican.
No, war veteran, or was it?
He went to Korea.
Oh, Korea, yeah.
My dad was a lot older than my mom, so he traveled the world and was stationed everywhere. So he was very well spoken, which I attribute my aptitude of vocabulary comes from my father. He would teach us big words. One of the things that I remember most was like he'd, you know, just use basic situations at home as like tools to try to teach us big words, and we'd be like, huh, what was that? You know, it's like go look it up, and we had a dictionary.
Oh, no way. So he'll make you go find out what it means. He'll say it, and then you got to figure it out.
One word that sticks out to me was like cacophony, right? Like, ooh, what's cacophony? Or was like, you know, stop making all that cacophony. Is like, it's noise, right?
Oh, no way.
Unorganized noise.
I never knew that.
So
unorganized
noise, like just
cacophony,
you know, this disruptive noise.
I'll go upstairs and tell my kids that when we're done, man.
Right. So you learn to take what good, and, you know, you looking back in retrospect, you're like, you know, my father is why I speak the way that I speak.
Gotcha.
Because I had conversations with him. You know, he taught me a little bit about cars. He was a mechanic by trade. He was a slip maintainer, hardworking man. So I know my way around a car. I could, you know, change things if I need to change things. But that just wasn't like my thing. Right?
Oh, right.
But rest in peace to my father. I lost him right before I went to prison in 2017. He died June 1st, I want to say. And, you know, it was hard. Not really hard, but my father was battling Alzheimer's at the time, and he didn't really know what's going on. So I really didn't have my father to just lean on and say, hey, I'm about to go to prison. I had to like kind of ask him, feel him out and see if he understood. And he just looked at me. He held my hand and squeezed my hand really hard. But, you know, you're in and out when you're
Yeah.
when you have Alzheimer's. So, you know, it was bittersweet because in one end, you know, I was like, man, I don't have to explain something this hard to my father. He doesn't need to know like I let him down or his son is, you know, a screw up. And so on that side, I got off the hook. You know?
I got you.
But on the other side of it, you know, he, you know, I didn't get to just lean on my father and as a male and say, hey, look, I've made these mistakes and, you know, what can you tell me? You know, what do you got for me? You know, as a son, you lean to your father, you go to your father, and it's like, you know, they're everything to you, right? But you know, when you're dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia, there's like that shell of a person, and that's what I was dealing with. So I didn't even really get to grieve the loss of him when I went away, because a couple months later I turned myself in after he passed away. So I kind of, you know, have been going through a lot mentally and mental health wise, like trying to heal. You know, you get back and the obvious is like, oh, you know, you're divorced, you don't have a wife, you don't have money anymore, you don't have none of the things that you used to have anymore. Those are like the obvious and the things that people like to focus on. But, you know, the deeper scars are those quiet, silent ones that only you and God really know. Like, hey, I don't have my father anymore. Will you be my father? Right. I just recently got baptized.
Okay.
And I find a lot of solace in that, in knowing that my father's up there with him, and I can have a relationship with him through following Jesus.
You
know, and those have kind of been like my sticking points, or like the things that have been hardest to get past. You know, coming back home. You know, you
know, if you don't mind me asking you, would you mind sharing like what led to that? I know you mentioned like a few things you mentioned, and like right now, like marriage, being married, and then going in. I don't know if you don't, maybe not details, but whatever you want to share, like what was going on like right before that led to all this, I guess.
Well, you know, I had really high profile friends that were in the drug trade. Okay. So I kind of inherited it, you know, although, you know, I didn't get rolled into some of the cases that they were involved in and stuff. I dodged bullets, like missed it by like hair, right? And I had a long run afterwards that kind of made me feel like invincible, or like, oh, I got this figured out. I got the secret. I go in and out. I'll stop. I'll cool off, hit it again, cool off, hit it again, cool off. And for a long time that worked until, you know, somebody tells on you. And it's like, no matter how hard you try to, you know, maintain that you weren't doing it, you know, they know about you. Even if you think they don't. You're in the system, somebody's yapping their gums, telling them, they're up to something, or they do something, or I know somebody they work with. So I wasn't like brand new to them. They had known about me. You know, I was running around with some of the bigger guys, you know, out here selling drugs. So you kind of lie to yourself and you tell yourself, you know, that you got it figured out. You're smarter, you know. And just to be clear, I never was around all these guys because of like who I was streetwise, or how hardcore I was of a gangster, or like how tough I was, or any of that. I was around them because they saw opportunity in me and they saw ideas in me. I've always been creative. I've always been somebody that brought something else other than money or fear or muscle to the table. I brought what they needed, is that thing that sparked them to say, okay, this is what I'm going to invest in, get myself out of the hood, or get myself out of this life. You know, when I helped one of the bigger guys start a record company, you know, I want to say I gave birth to a lot of people that were like, okay, let's do this. You know, like I say it all the time. One Rudy created another Rudy, you know, and you know the Rudys I'm talking about. I don't really like to name drop or get into people because, you know, it's touchy. You know, people lost their lives. People are in jail for a really long time. So I like to just not really talk about, you know, the dead or people who are long gone until they can come back and talk for themselves. But, I did spark a lot of that street label mentality, and monkey see, monkey do. You do one, and then everybody else thinks they could do it better or bigger, and that's how it went. So I'm well known in the city for steering a lot of ships and helping a lot of people connect the dots with artists and developing artists, breaking artists. I mean, even beyond me helping these labels that were like urban legends that, never happened, like aside from that, my own accolades are my own accolades. I was Damien Cash before I helped start any labels for anybody. Right. And then I was Damien Cash after that. I started 2-3 of my own labels. I've got Emmy, Grammy nominations. I've got placements. And, I've got several placements on major projects. Nothing like really huge, but they're accomplishments in their own right for me. I've helped, propel the careers of a lot of people, or when some of these Grammy Award winning producers that are now like big time producers, when nobody knew about them, I was the one paying for flights, going to New York, going to LA, trying to go sell beats with no name people. And now they're, so I had a pulse on things. I knew that I had an ear for it. I knew that, I had something, So for me, it's like just reconnecting with that old me before, the drug dealing and all of that stuff, and finding my way back to my true self, which is the music and the things that I love to do most. Anything creative, art, music, culture, it all sings to me, right? So just it's been a journey, even when I went away. I think the things that I strengthened while I went away was, more vocabulary, more expansion of my mind, and writing. I became an avid writer.
How many years did you do?
I was supposed to do 84 months. I ended up getting 60. And even then I caught another blessing. So COVID came and I got early release. So I did a lot of my time at home. So I really was gone in prison from like early 2017 through 2020, which is still close to 3 years. Right. But then the rest of it I did at home on an ankle monitor. Right. Which was also like weird, right? They tell you you're going home, but when you get home, it's not really home. It's augmented, right? Everybody's on lockdown. Nobody can come see you. It's like I Am Legend, right? You come out and it's like, where's everybody at? You get passes from the halfway house and you're like downtown and you're like, there's nobody here.
That was crazy, man.
What am I doing now? Like maybe I should have stayed in, but
probably had more social.
Right. I was around more people when I was locked up. This is insane. Crazy, so it flipped things in an augmented reality for me. So, I was robbed of a homecoming. I did a late homecoming party like a year and a half after I was out already.
No, is that after you got off house arrest, or you were still at
I was still on house arrest. I had an ankle monitor at my homecoming. But that's when they opened things back up for you to be able to do parties or anything. So, I had to wait. Like, it was kind of like a delayed reaction, and then people still came out and were like, oh, we're so happy you're home. It's like, I've been home, so. So COVID was bittersweet for me. It a lot of people hated COVID when I got home. I was like, man, COVID's great. It got me home early as a blessing. And then when I started to realize the downsides of COVID, I was like, man, it's affected so many of my friends, so many, my family members. It's got people acting like they not normal. They're not, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's all been kind of a little bit of a setback. I even got like really anxious to the point where I started pushing the boundaries and the limit of that ankle monitor, and I violated. So I violated in October of 2022. And then they re-released me again, time considered served, in January because they counted for like that First Step Act and all the programming I was doing. So I had signed off on 84 months. The guy who was delivering to me got sentenced the day before me, and he got 60. And he was the only person I really knew on the case. So my lawyer was like, "Hey, can you give him 60?" Blessing. Right there, because they didn't have to. I already signed off on 84.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They just were playing with my life in the balances. They're just like, well, the judge was like, I don't really care. If the prosecutor don't care, 60 is fine. We'll give him 60 like the other guy. And that easy, like I caught my first blessing and I realized, wow, it went from 84 to 60.
That's a nice little difference, man.
I go in, I get 60, you're only going to do 48 of that, and I'm like, okay, this is manageable. I can do this. I started, it took me a little time to adjust, but I think one of my better skill sets is probably adaptability.
Okay.
I'm able to morph into things that I shouldn't even be involved in, be around a gang atmosphere, be around a drug cartel atmosphere, talk to cartel people, talk to big time drug dealers, deal drugs, talk to every type of person that you can encounter when you're selling CDs in different neighborhoods and different ethnic backgrounds. So, adapting is my thing. It took me a little while for prison, but once I adapted, it was like, all right, disconnect, stay, go, run the course, feed your mind, work out, get to it. And that's when my time really started to go. When I was first fighting it and I had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and I had a cell phone, I was desperately trying to connect with back home.
Oh, you had a cell phone in there?
Well, yeah, I went to a camp first. So at camp, like phones are everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
They're like one in every cell pretty much.
Okay.
And I started to rely on that heavily. And, my first year flew by in a screen of a phone and trying not to get caught, like being in, FaceTimes and trying to like still be a part of everyone back home. And,
so it wasn't really like, I got you. Yeah.
So, and then I got caught with one phone, then I got caught with another phone, and then things got hard. And this is where I want to say, I really encountered, Christ or the Holy Spirit. They threw me down to the medium because a camp is always connected to, I was at Oxford camp. They threw me down
there's
to
a federal?
Yeah.
Right.
So I went down to Oxford, which was a medium. So I'm camp level. I'm not even supposed to be around low people.
Right.
So they put me in the corner of the SHU, segregated housing unit, the hole, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So, it felt like solitary for me. And then they didn't know what to do with me. They were like dragging out my DHO hearing. So I was down there for almost 3 months. It was like 78 days.
Is that by yourself? In one cell?
Yeah. Well, I was in a cell by myself. And then whenever someone in the camp would get in trouble, they'd shoot them down there for a few days, or then they'd move them or separate them. Or for some reason, everyone else was getting shipped out before me and I wasn't. So it was a really long, drawn out time for me down there by myself to really like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I started to contemplate suicide at that time and saying, I don't want to do this. This is like, jail got really hard for me when it went from camp to solitary.
Yeah.
Those are two different ends of the spectrum and the pendulum, right? Like,
you know what? I told my wife, because I did 3 years, but it was state. And the first 2.5, I did like smoothly because I was around other people. And I tell her, it was like always interacting. And then I got caught getting a tattoo when they threw me like in seg. And I was there for a month. And that's when it finally hit me that I was locked up, man. Like before, like, man, you're playing handball, basketball, lifting weights, talking, just be BSing around. And
when you got like a little regimen, time starts to fly. You don't realize where you're at or what's going on, and then all of a sudden, like, you have that, or like for me, I had that phone, for instance. I'm on Facebook, I'm keeping up with everybody. I'm on, Instagram, I'm checking everybody out. But then you start to like see people's lives go on.
Yeah.
And then it gets really hard. Gotcha. And then you're like, why do I even have this phone? I'm just hurting myself, because people are moving on with life and living life, going out, enjoying themselves. Like, you're in jail. Yeah. So then those things get a little bit hard to swallow. And then when you start to get into desperation mode and you're like, man, what's going on? Like, I don't like this feeling that I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I'm being forgotten, or, what's going on. And you lose sight of what's going on, and you lose track that you're on a phone in federal prison and the guards creep up on you. Yeah. And it's right when you're having that moment of contemplation in your mind about even being on the phone or why you're on the phone and doing this to yourself. And it's just like you're doing your own mind harm, by doing that, trying to hold on. As humans, we are meant to be in a relationship. We're not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be in cages. So your human nature kicks in, and you long for relation and rapport, or back and forth, or some sort of camaraderie with whoever. And when you get in trouble with that stuff and it's all contraband, and then it's all over with, now your time really starts. My time started. I'm in solitary. They put me way up in a corner because I'm not supposed to be in any proximity to any medium inmates, because it could be potential hazard for them, or so they forget my lunch, they forget my meal. No way. I'm like way in the corner. I gotta yell for people to remember, I'm way down here. And I start, like, my mind really starts to like take its toll, and it's like, man, this life is not worth living. And I really started to like tear the sheets, make the braid, make the noose, figure out where I'm going to hang myself from. And it was like a week process that I started to make this like braid. It's like you tear the sheets and you make a braid so that it can hold you up and it won't rip, or you don't fail at it, right? And I was getting ready. It was dark. The lights had just went out. Man, I laid down. I got up at like 1, and I was like, yeah, it's time to check out. This ain't for me anymore. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel here anymore. And I remember putting the noose over my neck, looking up at exactly where I was going to hang it. I started to try to throw it that way and get it over this conduit that was holding to the light structure. And one of those throws, it missed, and the string, or the braid I had made, fell towards the ground, and I looked in the direct sight, and there was like a glow from like a bar or a window that was like kind of light coming in. It was real movie-ish. Yeah, I got you. Right? Yeah. And there's a Bible on the bar. Now, I don't know if you know this, but no guard is supposed to push religion. Okay. Or suggest religion to you. They could lose their job over it. You're supposed to be free to choose whatever religion you want to choose. Right. So I grabbed the book, and I was like, wow, that's weird. Who put this here? I didn't ask for this book. The book cart comes around when you're in the SHU once a week, and you pick your books, and that's it. So I grabbed the book, and I just started reading, and it was in Psalms, and I just started reading Psalms, and then Psalms went into something else, and and I just stayed in the book. And the next few days, I just kept asking the guards, "Did you put this here? Did you put this here? Did you put this here? Did you put this?" He's like, "No, I don't. What? I didn't put your Bible there." So I knew it was him. He came to interject, and I came to the conclusion really quick that he doesn't show up. We just tune our ear to hear him, right? By human nature, again, we usually are more astute to hearing him when we're having problems and we're going through trials and tribulations or we're conflicted.
Yeah.
But he's always there. He's always guiding us. He's always telling us what to do, what not to do, how to do. There's always signs, right? But that wasn't just like, oh, you saved my life, I was gonna, kill myself.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed with joy when I looked back at my life and realized how many times he had been there to intercede, interject, save me from this, save me from that, don't go this way, don't go that way. It was like a moment of clarity for me that I realized that he really had his hand in my life, all my life.
Yeah.
And that drew me closer to him. And I'm working on my relationship with him as we speak. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, big mistakes, little mistakes still to this day. And I just know that he's a father full of grace, right?
Yeah.
He's forever forgiving us for everything we do, how we do things in life. And I'm just happy, to be here on the show with you, talking about this and hopefully helping someone that's doesn't have a relationship with
right.
him. And you don't have to have it all together. You can go to him broken, with none of it figured out, and he's gonna fix it. You don't have to be, have it all together or be fixed. He's gonna help you walk in his way little by little, and before you know it, you'll be healed of all the things that are, have happened to you in your life or that you're having trouble healing from.
So after that moment, the Bible, did that thought leave you? Like it never crossed your mind again, like to end it?
No, I had several traumatic things happen to me after that. I got my divorce papers served to me
in
prison. I lost some friends while I was in there, some to COVID and some like that were out here in the world that I found out, my brother got shot while I was in there, and I thought I was going to lose him. My mom was getting sick. I thought I was going to lose her. So I was going through a lot of things in prison that could have pushed me further than that. But I feel like once I realized that that's not the path he wanted for me, that I realized that thought should never be an option for me.
Gotcha.
Down the way, when things get hard, because I know that, he loves me and he's there and his hand is there. So, knowing like that Bible, I think just symbolizes like his hand forever on those bars or around my life. Like, I feel like he was letting me know, like, I'm here all the time.
Yeah.
You just have to talk to me. You have to walk with me and we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So I'm blessed in many ways. I got home. I had street debts with people like even JC. We've talked about it on his podcast, and God figured all of those relationships out for me. The people that he wanted in my life to be a part of my life, he was intervening in all of those things. Like, what am I going to say to this guy? He's a killer. He's tough. He's going to want his money. Like, what do I say? But I knew that when I got home that I had to clear the air with whoever I had things with. And I believe the Holy Spirit and God, and he guided me through a lot of those things, and it all just panned out for the better, like
Okay.
my relationship with JC's way stronger than it ever was because he came to me with love. He was one of the first people to send me money, like when I didn't have a penny to my name.
And this is before that change happened with him, right? Or was it after?
It was, he was still like transitioning.
Yeah, right.
He was early on in it.
Okay.
He was still doing Wrong to Strong, the narco stories and all of that stuff, which is why I came on his show. But he had God in his heart and he knew where he was heading. And it started, I think it kind of sparked things actually just to be like that forgiving and walk in his way and say, oh, forget that. I just value that you're my brother and I'm able to talk to you and you're alive.
Yeah.
And I value you as a person.
Yeah.
So, that also, let me know that he was real because we've done things, like we've been on the street together. So we've seen each other, we've witnessed each other do things that are, way out of line, way out of character, way against humanity. And to see the change in him is like real, just be like, yo, this is the same guy I used to hit the streets with, mask up with, Glock up with, let's go do this, do that, lay some people down and steal some things or whatever we got into for that moment, which was all wrong, right? Brought us to that moment where we had that realization, like God is real. He can change the hardest of us, the toughest of us. He could change.
Amen.
So that's, another like notch on like, knowing that he's real.
Yeah.
So, JC has been a blessing for me because he's been like my rails, right? My guide, like watching him, I see myself starting to go in that direction, and I reserve my time for church on Sundays. I don't let nobody get in the way of that. Whatever's going on in my life that's worldly, it doesn't matter. If I'm still posting raps, like, sometimes I'll post things and I'll tag JC and it's got curses. And he's like, it's got a curse. Take it out. I'm like, all right, I got you. I'll take it down.
Untag me.
Or untag him or repost it with a better song.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's all growth, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And going through that walk with him, So I just, I'm grateful for the people that God's starting to align my life with and put back in my life. And, even us connecting again and saying, hey, why don't you, do the show? Like, it wasn't even in my mind because, I'm podcasting music, people, and it's worldly music.
Right.
So, my podcast, at first I was going to do, something where it was like Wrong to Strong, like narco inspired.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that's not me anymore. I don't want to do that. I don't want to promote that. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to fuel that. I don't want to continue to talk about the past. So I'm like, let's talk about my music.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the past of who I really want to get back to being before this lifestyle wreaked havoc,
Gotcha.
On me,
Right.
So,
what's the name of the podcast?
It's Cash Talks.
Okay.
One of my really good close friends prior to me going away is director Will Gates, who's, he's shot 15 episodes for Drugs Inc. He's got his own movies now. I just went to one of his premieres, and it's just amazing to see the growth in him. And, he's somebody that I helped start in the biz, right? I gave him some of his first like BTS or behind the scenes breaks, and then he was always around and willing to help me, and that's full circle, right? Because now I got home and it's like I don't know what to do or how to do it or how to start it without any money, and he's like, I got you, big bro, like you did a lot for me, so that's another like blessing from God, to align me with people that are professional and can help me, see my dream out or bring my dream to fruition, and it's just been a learning thing, little by little, as I did a crash course and said, I'm going to film this first episode and I'm going to figure everything out around it as I upload it. Right. That's how I learned, I got on, I don't know how many directories in less than a couple hours, and I was up in every single platform. And then my show gets on there and it ranks in Apple, and I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah.
And there's one episode, it's my first episode. I'm like, okay, I got something here. Right. Let me like wash, rinse, repeat. Let me get set up to do this the right way. So, I know people are waiting and they're like, oh, well, he put out one episode. Well, where's he at? Like, it was a
the trailer. It was
the prequel, the preview, right?
So what do they call that when they make a show? It's the first one. I forget the name. There's a name, right? When they do
like the pilot.
There you go, pilot. Right.
And that was also a blessing too. Is the first person that ever was on one of my mixtapes right before I stopped making mixtapes was Cold Hard.
Okay.
From Crucial Conflict.
Yeah.
So he
was it Hey?
Yeah.
It was a song. Hey, they had a couple of them. Well, Hey, what was the other one?
Rodeo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Rodeo. Yo.
And he was just like, I'm with you, brother. Let's do it. He happened to be around Will Gates at where he films at. Right. And does his work, and I was like, all right, let's get it. And it was just love, and there was, some people have to start off by paying people, and when you're nothing and you don't have any following yet, and you're just starting out, it's like the hardest thing to get guests, right? Even in what we're doing here, right. But I will say, like, I've got some pretty interesting things lined up, and I'm not gonna ruin anything, but. My brother Will Gates, he contacts me on a daily basis, and he's like, let's do this. We got this. You got something here. Let's go. And he's also been helping me film a documentary style about like mixtapes and the mixtape era in Chicago. So that's kind of been a passion project of ours that we've been working on together, called The Death of the CD and the Mom and Pop.
You put a little like trailer out of that,
there's
right?
A trailer out of it. So we're hunting down a lot of people that are relevant to that story, and just, some people don't want to be found. Some people, when you do find them, it's like, oh, I'm not ready, or I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to talk about that stuff, or they're scared, the rights, or I don't know.
Yeah. So they're gonna go back to what you mentioned, racketeering.
Yeah, so it's like it's been a journey, like getting people, but just tell them people are starting to come around.
Tell them you blur their face,
right?
Man.
Exactly. Or do like Drugs Inc. Like blur the voice and everything. It's like nobody's gonna know who you are. It's over with. If they didn't catch you then, it's over with. I mean, nobody even sells CDs anymore. Like it's
that'll be messed up to go. Hey, what you in here for, man? Hey, selling CDs, man. Yeah. What's a CD, man?
Right. So. That's also another thing that my documentary is kind of about, is like the evolution of like the delivery of music, right? Yeah. I started off with tapes, then it went to CDs, and then CDs died, and it went to the aux cord, then it went to the iPod, and then it went to Napster and LimeWire, and then streaming just, first it was download music, for 99 cents and iTunes, and then streaming just came and it just killed everything. So
this is crazy, man. Like, do you see like a timeline as far as like when, like releasing that, or like getting that finished
really
product now?
I'm not in a rush to do it, just because little by little God is like making these people resurface that need to resurface, like key people, like the guys that owned all the lowrider shop in North Riverside, the Ford City, River Oaks, Gurney Mills, like they had a monopoly, right? Like I just bumped into that guy like 2 weeks ago. He's like, let's do it.
No way.
I'm down. I'm ready. Whenever
I remember that.
We got a lot to talk about, right? Just, all the people from the mega malls, hard to find those people. Discount Mall, I got a couple of stores, but, a lot of those store owners are dead and gone.
Right.
Rest in peace. So we just got to tell it to the best of our ability through other accounts and other people. So, I'm not in no rush to like release that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
right.
kind of like a little bit of like the beginning of my life,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
life's work. I like to, talk about those things because I'm more proud of that
yeah,
than anything else in my life. It was the foundation of who I am
right.
and what led me to meet, as crazy as my life has been. You look at these like narco stories and Netflix specials and all of that, and it's like, you know, it doesn't surprise me when I see those shows or like alarm me. Is like, yo, I lived that life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But the thing that I take away the most out of it is like some of the people like JC. Who would have ever thought he's like the biggest follower to Christ and kind of like my foundational piece to like keeping me grounded in that and keeping me straight.
right.
Who would have thought that that would have came from that life,
Yeah,
let alone him? Like, I mean, everybody knows who I rolled around with,
yeah, yeah,
and that guy was big, bad, tough. Everybody was scared of him. And he was scared of JC because JC was a monster in his own. He was
yeah,
a
yeah,
demon of his own,
yeah,
and he terrorized things. So, who would have ever thought that that change in him, would happen and that I would extract that out of like all of the turmoil and everything that I went through in my
right.
life, from selling drugs to seeing the amounts of drugs that I've seen, the amounts of money, the amounts of, people getting killed and, shootouts. And, I've survived a lot of things. And to look back at it, I just look at it like I got some good things out of it. I
Right.
got some good brothers out of it. And, you're one of those people. I mean, you're a ministering in wrong to strong, which is a derivative of JC,
Yeah, definitely, man.
so, it can only, be a good thing
Yeah.
that came from that.
I was telling somebody that because I was locked up from 97 to 2000. I got out, so I'll say for 4 years I was still like in the streets, but then I got saved in 2004 October, and man, my life turned around completely. And to be honest, I was telling JC, I think yesterday, I was texting him like, man, like it's almost like when I reconnected with him, like I told him, man, you reminded me that I was locked up at one point in my life.
Yeah.
Because my life was totally different, because I'm already serving God. I'm married, got 3 kids, got a home, I got a job, I got a consistent life. And when he got saved and we reconnected, it's like, then he started, hey, we want to do this Round Strong. He's the one that challenged me to start this podcast,
Right.
He's the one so it was all through him. And it's crazy because I just told him tomorrow I'm going to be going into Stateville, man.
Oh, nice.
So there's this a ministry. It's called Koinonia House Ministries. And they do prison ministry, Cook County, throughout the state and the country. They be going to, Angola prison in Louisiana, Mississippi. And this ministry, they got their years in prison ministry. Yeah. So tomorrow from 12 to 2, I'm going to be going in there with them to Stateville, man. I haven't been in a prison since 2000.
Wow.
So, but like I was telling, going back to JC, it was only through him, man. You know what I'm saying? Like him switching, of course, God,
Right.
But like I tell him, it takes somebody that surrenders, because God's not going to overpower us and take control of our lives, because we could fight him, He could want to use us and we could go back, rebel, disobey. But through him, that's why I told him, through your obedience and through your surrender, I told him he's a catalyst.
Right.
What God did in him is like a catalyst that got other people in motion.
Yeah.
And like me being one of them through this, and then tomorrow that, like I told him if it wasn't for you, and I'm going in there because of people that I connected through the podcast, people that I've interviewed, that, man, hey, I did some time, now I'm part of this ministry. Hey, you should interview this person. And then that person referring a woman to my wife that's part of that ministry. And then, hey, I heard your testimony.
It's all God's plan, man. It's just funny, like how you said, like watching him made you remember, like, yo, I was locked up once, right? When I look at him and I see him talking passionately about Christ and his relationship and where he's at in his journey, I realize and I remember like, yo, we ran the streets together. We did stuff together. And, he's just like you said, he's that catalyst. He's like the poster child for like what could be for change, right?
Yeah.
Change can come into anyone's life. But yeah, I mean, shout out to JC, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Our brother in Christ,
Amen.
man, our brother,
Yes.
We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And, I'm grateful for the opportunity to come in and just talk a little bit about my life.
Amen.
And life ain't easy, man. We make mistakes all the time. We commit sins and things that we're ashamed of.
Yeah.
And, we always run back and say, God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do this. It's not in my heart to hurt someone or deceive someone, be deceitful or make bad decisions. And, we go day by day adding on to that. And I think it just fortifies our relationship with him because he knows we're of the flesh. We're going to sin. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to be tempted. The devil's going to creep in. He's going to tempt us, especially when we're trying to establish our relationship and walk with him. He comes on stronger. There's two sides to this thing, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That we're in, so we have to be aware of that. And I'm just glad that coming back home, I met quite a few people that go to church and have kind of helped me root myself in that, and going to church because, when we're in trouble and we're in prison, like we're thumping the Bible, we're in it because we need it. We need him. When we get out in the world, life gets in the way. The noise gets in the way. All of life just happens and it takes us in 1,000,001 directions, and we forget, to open that book and stay in that book, stay in that word, and fortify that, water that seed, and continue to grow that relationship. And I've been fortunate to have met a couple of good people in my life that have rooted me and grounded me. And when I've strayed away from, walking in his way, I find myself gravitating to those people, and I find myself being back anchored and rooted back to a church, a home somewhere, to reestablish that relationship with him out here. Cause out in there is easy, you've got nothing but working out, watching TV, and read the Bible or read books. Yeah. There's not a lot of choices out here. You have a plethora of choices.
Oh yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I think is just choosing him above all the other choices that we got out here to our disposal.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I don't know if you got any,
No, no, man, that's good. Everything you shared with that. I had a question like, with all the creativity and everything, well, what do you see for yourself? Maybe like in this upcoming season, or maybe what are some goals or vision that you have, like moving forward? I guess
I've found the strength in this late age of mine to think about going back to college. Right.
Okay.
I took a digital online course, and at first I was panicking, trying to figure out how I was going to retain and learn things at this late in age. Our brains just work differently.
Right? My cousin said, man, in order to memorize something, he's got to delete precious family moments.
Right. Yeah, you got to make it room. It's an old.
He said, I don't got no USB plug up here, man.
So, I'm taking a course right now, and that's a 10-month course, and I'm planning to like continue education and further myself. What I'm learning is that I've done a lot of things on pulse and God's gift, right? Like I had my pulse on how to do things without even having the proper schooling or the terminology behind what it is. The method to my madness was I just knew how to make things happen, knew how to make an artist, knew how to develop an artist, knew how to pair artists with producers, seek out good producers, seek out good writers, and make it happen on my level here locally.
Right.
I don't claim to be like a national
Right.
renowned person, but I learned to do what I do best with what was within reach for me here in Chicago. And I knew everybody. So, you know, just trying to get back to that version of me, that could create something out of nothing.
Gotcha.
But something that's in God's sight, good for humankind and humanity, as opposed to damaging our community and pumping drugs into our community and doing, everything under the sun to like damage things, so I'm just kind of excited to like really put my focus and effort into school and, still trying to fulfill my dream of music somehow, but probably just in a different capacity. I'm blessed. I'm fortunate, and day by day, God just keeps opening more doors, because I've been in a struggle with myself lately on what it is I want to do. And I feel like the more I lean on Him, the more He opens doors for me and shows me, this is what I want you to do. Go through this door, go through that door, go through that door. And just being able to tune my ear to hear the slightest of whispers of Him is kind of where I'm at with it. And, it's been a ride, man. It's been a crazy ride, and I'm only here by His grace and His hand, clearly, for going through all of what I've gone through and all of what I've seen, legal and illegal in my life. My upbringing was not easy. It was very hard. I've gone through everything, I've got it. I've got my handful of issues, right? From, molestation to, I'm transparent with mine, I've fell to the hands of those things, and, a broken home, even though it was together. My parents divorced 4 times, remarried 5 times total. So there was that push and pull of like, what's normal in a relationship is what are you gonna accept in your life as good, so I'm still trying to redefine those things and realize, like, everyone that says they're good for you or trying to do good for you isn't good for you. Sometimes, people come in and say that they're, for you or for the betterment of you. And in reality, they're selfish and, doing everything but helping you get to a better space in life. So that all comes through acceptance of what we've grown up seeing and witnessing. And that's where I'm at. I'm redefining those parameters as to what I will accept and what I won't accept in life, And God's good, man. He's opening my eyes to a lot of things and helping me sort out a lot of things. I have a lot of, I go to psychology, 3, 4, or 5 times a month if I need to, to just sort it out professionally. But, re-entry is something that I'm really trying to focus on, as far as like how to give back. Trying to wrap my mind around fixing my re-entry so that I could create a syllabus around like how to properly usher your family back in. And that starts, I think, way before someone even gets out. You could do a lot of things to help a family member and support a family member. You could add them to your credit cards, help them get their credit in order, fix their credit. You can do a lot of those things way before they come home. That's not something that you want to wait for them to get here and get desperate and waiting on your credit to be fixed so that you can get a car, you can get an apartment and all of those things. Like, sometimes it's that simple. Yo, my credit's shot. I can't fix it. I can't get a place. I'm going to just go back to doing what I know how to do, because they hit that roadblock. They hit that resistance. And so I think it's really, re-entry is more about schooling and teaching the people that are going to be the support system than the actual inmate.
Okay, so you're talking about the family that they're coming home to.
Yeah.
So, like, because in there they do have some programs, like, for the inmate, but
but we're damaged.
yeah,
We're coming back damaged. That's inevitable.
right.
So we need open arms. We need empathy. We need compassion. We need someone to hold our hands, to put our head on their shoulder to lean on when things get hard, and know how to, somebody that has all the tools to support you properly
Right.
when you get back home. I think it lies more in the support group and the people around you that you build around you. And I think that there's something in the way we build that, right? Like we could create a process that helps us build a super team, right? Of like pastors, community leaders, friends, family, a church, a plethora of like components that can be of support in many different angles for someone going through reentry. Unfortunately, like for me, it's like, it's been hard. I got a rough relationship with my mom, but I've had to face that in a mirror fashion. And I think only God does that best. Say, we're going to fix this. So you're going to have to live here and you're going to have to go through this and repair this, because this is what I want for you to do, is repair this, and some people just don't got nothing to come back to. Some people have parole officers, their biggest support. And we all know not all those are the best. They're just, some of them are checking boxes or just, punching a clock. So I think that there's something there on me figuring out like the component of giving back. I think that's something that I want to look into and help develop. And that, we might be teammates on that. I know I've talked to JC about it. Okay. And he's talked about his house, the Wrong the Strong house and all of that.
Oh, and, right. About,
and there could be programs that we tie in, and we don't all got to be doing the same thing. We can all attack different things within the same problem.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
So I'm excited about the future, because I feel like the best is yet to come for all of us, right? Like
I do believe that, man, for
God
real.
has an amazing plan designed. We all don't know what it is yet, but I know that it's beyond amazing, whatever he has for us.
So. One thing I could tell you, man, just if it's of God, say yes, man. That's the season that I've been in, is just saying yes to the things of God, especially things that I'm uncomfortable with. But man, God's been moving, man. It's incredible. Like the pieces he's putting to, like a puzzle.
Right.
He's been putting this piece and that piece, and I don't have the whole picture yet, but it's good, man. It's good and getting better, man.
It's one of those big puzzles that you can't really see it coming together yet. It's just, you got this corner going over here, this corner over here. The center's kind of coming together, but you can't really see it. You know what's the picture on the box, but you can't see it, how you're gonna put it all together yet. But it's gonna get there. So,
but God's doing something great, man. Hey, usually I ask everybody that comes on here if they could close us out, maybe a final word and then a prayer. Okay. Anything you want to say, and then if you could pray us out,
I think where I'm at in my life, I think the word love is probably in the Bible more than any word. I can't remember the exact number, but it's in the 500 range, somewhere around there. So I think, lead with love, right? Everything that you do, lead with love. Love people and treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think, everyone thinks about how many commandments there is to like keep into account, to like be walking right in God. But I can assure you that if you just work on the first two, which is like love him above everything and love everyone else the way you want to be loved, all the other ones kind of fall into place.
Yes.
Based upon those two. So I think, love is really the way. God wants us to love each other and treat each other well. So that's really my message, man, is just lead with love.
Amen. Amen. That's good. You want to close out in a prayer, brother?
Sure. Father, I thank you for this opportunity to be here with my brother Omar on this Wrong to Strong podcast by way of JC, your son, your catalyst, to the glue to all of this, right? And I just ask for your hand in everything that we're doing and to be the speakers that amplify your word and your love for all of us, and that we are able to do this in a way that favors you, in a way that you're happy with and in harmony with your word and your book, and that you protect all of us from the world and, the other forces at hand, and that you protect all of our families involved with us, that support us, that see the good in us, that see the change in us, and all of the people that have supported us walking in the wrong to strong pattern, right? Like coming from prison or just doing wrong and then changing your life to something strong and good and positive. I ask that you bless every last one of those people that have seen the good in us after the wrong. And I just, I want to say thank you. And I'm grateful for you having your hand in my life. And if it wasn't for your hand in my life, I would not be here right now, as I've just told the story of, wanting to end myself, as some of us do in the world. And I'm grateful. I'm thankful for you interceding and interjecting, and that I'm able to be here to fulfill who you have me destined to be. Thank you, Father. And I'm grateful for everything that you're doing in my life, and touch anyone who's watching this through my words that's maybe on the fence about what it is that they're doing, and just let them know that there's a better way, and they don't have to have it all together. They can just come to you and put all their mess on the table with you, and that you'll help them. You'll walk them through, and you'll get them to where we all want to get to, and that's with you in heaven. Thank you.
Yes. Man, thank you for that prayer. Hey, brother, could you share what was the name of the podcast again, and where could people find it?
I'm on all major platforms, and it's under Cash Talks with an S. So I'm on your favorite, all Spotify, iTunes, Google, you name it. I'm in like 15 different directories of podcasts. I tried to make it accessible to everyone, and just if you're looking for me, I'm at Cash Talks _ listen on Instagram, and just follow me there. And I'm pretty vocal and pretty posty about everything I got going on. So you find me there, you'll find a little bit of everything there.
Amen. All right, brother, man. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing that story, man. And I know it's gonna touch many, man.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time, brother. And with that, we're gonna get ready to close out. I just want to thank my guest, Damien Cash, for being in here, and thank you guys for listening to another episode of Wrong and Strong Chicago. Matthew 4:16 reads, "The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and upon those who sat in the region and shadow of death, light has dawned." My name is Omar Calvillo. I am Wrong to Strong.